My friends, esteemed colleagues, I am being asked now frequently about the relation, to explain more about this GcMAF in relation with the white blood cells and the so-called immune system. Now, what do we notice in general in nature? That all animals are resistant to infections. And in wild animals, they can have big injury and run through mud, roll in a mud, shake off, and they don't have sepsis. They don't have any a toxic attack from what they absorb, through the open wound, and everything heals perfectly. But as far as we are concerned, and domestic animals, similar, some of them, we are way prone to infections, and even breaking little bubble on the skin and touching it with dirty hand, we can cause sepsis. Very strong autoimmune immune reaction, not autoimmune, but immune reaction, and high fever and death. Now, why is that so? Is our so-called immune system so weak? And then we are being paraded with some articles designed about collecting donations, like, oh, we have discovered that shark will not be affected by toxic environment. Even if they have a big injury, you cut their fin off, and if they can survive by feed themselves, they will survive, and the skin is going to heal. Doesn't matter how polluted is the water. Even in mangrove, which is usually brackish water, even there nothing happens to shark. So they say, oh, he's producing his own antibiotic, and baloney. We have to investigate that, give us donations, we'll hop on it. And then it was a deep sea sponge, and it was, who knows, they always invent some crap just to collect more money, when it is obvious that every single animal in wild is very resilient and will survive even with huge injury. There's not going to be infection, and everything will heal as long as they're not being incapacitated and then caught by predator and killed, of course. So what happened to me when I started promoting Cell Healers Protocol for the first time was almost 20 years ago, and those few people, usually very sick, that everything else failed them, so they had nothing to lose to try this, and often they would come out after being on a protocol month and a half. They would come up with a gum problem. They would have grown cysts and toxic with the pus, and they didn't have them before. So I was wondering, what the heck happens here? And then I also was reading about GcMAF being manufactured and pushed into the body that would help into destroying cancer and healing many so-called autoimmune diseases. So this was all puzzling, but what was obvious to me, that by changing diet and hydrating the body, the areas with contamination, and it could be bacterial as well, because bacteria will be in contaminated places because it will munch on the contaminant, toxin, that these areas would show abscess, big in the mouth, big in the skin, all of a sudden big huge boil. Now why? What was going on here? But mostly would bother me those abscesses, because people would have not healthy mouths or healthy teeth, but under control. Usually they had fixed cariases and even bridges, root canals, doesn't matter. But before doing the protocol, they would not have visible problems, and they start protocol, and bing, oh, all of a sudden abscess is showing up. Well, it dawned to me that the area is toxic. So preventing this, I would have to use antibiotic, but antibiotic interfere with cellular hydration. So I did not want to do that. And then reading about, all these alternative methods, I stumbled upon colloidal silver. This is the first time I actually paid attention to colloidal silver. And I started implementing it. And if people who started following the protocol started at the same time using colloidal silver just to hold it in their mouth for 10 minutes, twice a day, they would avoid experiencing these problems. No abscess will occur, which means that the area has been cleaned, or if there was a bacterial infestation, it was destroyed, because we know colloidal silver is perfect antiseptic, but it is not medicinal, which means it is not toxic to the body. So I start implementing it, but then I start going more into why it occurs when we start using the protocol. Well, one big change when we do the protocol is we stop eating carbohydrates. When we stop eating carbohydrates, we go into genetic realignment. Body is rapidly reacting, and it is reprogramming the cells to start going into ketogenic state and start using fat as a source of the energy. When this is done, the necessity of nagalase, or better say glycoside hydrolase, is gone, because body needs to produce this enzyme only when it is using glucose as a cellular fuel, because glucose has to be hydrolyzed before it can go into Krebs cycle to produce energy. It's a fast process, but it needs enzyme. And animals do not produce this enzyme, plants do. So since this would be now maybe revealing too much, the historians of medicine renamed the glycoside hydrolase into nagalase, completely new compound. It's a body produces it, and we know it's very plentiful in cancer cells or cells of tumors, because those cells can only exist anaerobically, which means without presence of oxygen, and the only thing that can fuel them in this case is carbohydrate, because carbohydrate, glucose, when it breaks down into energy, it needs oxygen. But since glucose contains oxygen in its molecule, it just needs little realignment, releases hydrogen, and the hydrogen connector switch to oxygen, creating carbon dioxide, and then it's being replaced by oxygen from the body and pushed out of the body. So that's how the excess of carbon is being eliminated. Once when we stop using glucose, we no longer need to hydrolyze it, because body is not programmed to use glucose as a fuel. Its original programming is focused on fat. This is why we accumulate fat. We don't accumulate potatoes and bananas in the body. We accumulate fat. So by not producing the nagalase, because genes receive a different vibration, and they start, the same genetic pair starts producing GcMAF protein. And GcMAF protein, which normally every animal produces, because they are always in ketogenic state, as we should be, as babies are when they are on milk, mother's milk, not formula. Formula already is designed to turn them into glucoholics. it is all done by intent to make the child sick, because glucoholic state is a sick state of the body, and all the parameters are based on it. So we think the level of hormones have to be such, and level of cholesterol has to be such, and level of triglyceride has to be such for body be healthy. But all these parameters are based on a toxic glucoholic body. Ketogenic bodies have different parameters, much higher cholesterol, higher triglycerides, because they're being used. So, and hormonal action is also very different. It's all shifts. This is why the Cellular's protocol is not only hydration and cleansing protocol. It is actually healing protocol, because it causes genetic realignment into the basic structure that it should have to keep the body in ketogenic state. Now, when we do not force glucose into the body and the genetics realign correctly, then instead of producing nagalas, the cells start producing GcMAF. Now, GcMAF protein flows through the cells and flows through the body, and its purpose is to attach itself to any protein that does not have electromagnetic field, that doesn't have magnetic repulsion, so it can easily slap onto it. All these proteins, dead debris, including a cellular discharge, should be taken by macrophage, by white blood cells. But since most of these proteins were created by the body, so they have a body signature, they have body resonance, the white blood cells do not recognize them as something to be taken out, unless they are marked, because macrophage is programmed to see the GcMAF as a label, garbage. This is why when we stop eating carbohydrates and being fed by glucose, GcMAF start being produced, and as it flows through the body, it sees all the area of low electrical charge with a low magnetic field, and they start sticking to it. So if you have a bunch of toxic debris underneath your tooth in a cavity, because it was seeping between the tooth and your gums, was seeping slowly in, accumulating, maybe there are bacteria, maybe not, does not matter, but it will be toxic stuff. Then GcMAF comes, labels it, and once when it's labeled, the white blood cells right away go out, wow, this is a lot of garbage. They start encapsulating it and destroying it, and causing a pus and the abscess. So this showed to me that we do not have to, that number one, GcMAF is normal protein being produced in a healthy body with proper genome. And we do not have to buy it and inject it, as some doctors start doing. It's all for profit. Okay, we make it for you. No, don't make it. Teach people how their body can produce it. No, but financially, this is a big no-no. How can we get rich and fat unless we scam people? Well, I can understand, because I solely live on donations, and although there are hundreds, if not thousands, of people watching my videos and reading my articles, only few donate. So it's not lucrative business doing what I'm doing, but I'm a messenger, and I always receive to be comfortable. I have no need to stash money, and I share anyway. With this surplus, I share with where money has to go. Money, if it's not used, has no value. Keeping in a bank and then crying every time stock goes down, it's bad for health. So anyway, everybody has their reasons. We mistakenly believe that white blood cells are part of our immune system. They're just garbage disposal system. And if garbage is not labeled, we are in deep trouble. And garbage cannot be labeled if we are in a glucoholic state, because instead of producing GcMAF, we produce nagalase, or better say hydrogen, glycogen hydrolase. It's, I learned about this stuff 40 years ago when I was studying medicine. And I know that only plants are doing this, so I did not pay attention much to that part of biology. And things evaporate, and even when I read about them, old dog, new tricks, somehow doesn't work. Anyway, you know what I want to say. So, by not producing the glycosid hydrolase or nagalase, the cell shifts into producing what it should be producing, what it's programmed to produce when body is correctly fed. It produces GcMAF protein. And when it does it, then you become way more resilient to infections from your cuts. You can step on rusty nail and you don't even have to clean the wound. You can just wash it a little bit with water. And again, using alcohol is contraindicatory. We watch the movies, and so remember, we are being brainwashed, not only through science, but through media. Because we have to be always kept with the wrong knowledge so we don't stumble on the truth. We just reject it when we see it because it's opposite to what we know is true. And always, you see westerns and guy being shot, whiskey, No, putting some black powder and lighting it, and that is disinfectant. Taking a knife and making it very hot and burning the spot, this is disinfectant. Do we need to do that? No, if we produce GcMAF, which means if we don't eat the stupid carbohydrates. Vegans, vegetarians are getting it. And anybody can experience this. If you have a little problem with teeth, but let's say you have been worked on your teeth, and you want to start with this protocol, if you do not take colloidal silver, you may experience problem with inflammation. Because this is going to happen. It happened to several people when I started, and as soon as I introduced colloidal silver, no more. Because after the original stuff was cleaned by colloidal silver, and then production of GcMAF started, preventing or getting rid of the garbage in the body. Because then it is labeling also the trash that comes out of the cells, just labels it, and then macrophage knows, and macrophage gobbles it up. As I have mentioned, leukemia is related to white blood cells not being able to find the irritant, the toxin, the pathogen, so-called, that they have been created to fight, because body realized that there is a wrong frequency, so produces white blood cells. White blood cells cannot find where is the problem, so they linger longer. And since the problem was not resolved, the body produces more and more and more, and you start having accumulation of white blood cells. And since the problem is not dealt with, the body produces them faster, so they don't even have time to properly develop. In the body, it's always supply and demand. Something to be produced, there have to be requirement for it. And it goes to everything in a body. If you start lifting heavy weights, there is need for bigger muscle, your body is going to create them. You stop lifting heavy stuff, there is no need for big muscles, the body will take it out. It will just calibrate the muscle to the general purpose. Same as with thickness of the bone, same as with hormonal activities. So if body produces less hormone, it means that something has changed in the body, that the mechanism, the programming calculates what is the best way to deal with the situation, and sometimes is to reduce certain production of certain hormones. Then we say, oh, adrenals are depleted because there's not enough hormone. There's no such a thing as depleted adrenals. Another baloney, another bullshit story. Okay, so understanding the body correctly is very necessary. Unfortunately, we do not receive the correct information from the School of Medicine because it is controlled by Cabal, who wants us dead. And of course, what then Cabal teaches so-called doctors? How to cut, poison, and kill people. Definitely not how to heal. But it goes through manipulation of the symptoms, which is great knowledge for emergencies. So if there is an emergency and strong symptom occur, let's say heart stops, wow, bingo, that's a big symptom. Restarting the heart, great stuff. Okay, stopping bleeding when artery is cut, great stuff. But having some chronic issue and having doctor involved with doing the chronic, treating the chronic problem, well, what are they doing? They are attacking the symptom. And most of the symptoms are actually body's attempts to heal itself. So they're actually trained to prevent the body from healing itself. They stop healing processes. And this is very obvious because symptoms of healing. Well, first it is symptoms of detox, symptoms of high blood toxicity, like headache, muscle pain, or any kind of a pain in the body, and increased body temperature. Those are symptoms of toxic blood. And the symptoms of releasing these toxins, it is sweating, it is frequent urination or dark urine, diarrhea, nausea. But we have symptomatic medicine to stop every of these things. So you go to a doctor, you feel a little bit out of energy, and you come out with 10 different medications for 10 different symptoms to be suppressed. So you are being systematically poisoned. But don't worry, those guys have a license, which means they know everything. No, they have a license to protect them from wrongdoing. They are never accountable. Okay, my friends, so I hope I showed you a little bit the relationship between the GcMAF and so-called reaction of white blood cells, or so-called immune processes in the body, which the immunity or is actual resistance to a shift of frequency, which can only be achieved with high voltage, cellular voltage. And what depletes our cellular voltage fastest and the most is overactive brain, and this happens in a situation of fear. Every time you are in a fear, your voltage of the body drops, and this is when you can be easily shifted in a frequency. So every time you're under stress, bingo, and herpes shows up, shingles show up, diarrhea shows up, fever shows up. But now you know why. Okay, my friends, thank you for listening. Till next time, love you all. God bless us all. Namaste.